we got Faye Horton. We met in a book collaboration. She does collaborations, but she's written her own books. Faye Horton, she works with her own Faye Horton Ministries, correct?
Yes.
And she's just doing a lot, she's an amazing woman with just patient, steadfast, one foot right in front of the other, consistent. And I like one thing about Faye is she is very firm. You know, some people have a problem saying no and they like pile on too much stuff. Let me tell you something. Faye is like, well, let me think about that. If she can do it, she does it. If she can't, she'll just go ahead and let you know. And that keeps you being a person of your word. Because I think a lot of people need to figure that out. Like, there are a lot of really good people and they'll like say yes to everything. But then when you kind of fail to complete the task, you know, there's this tension. So a lot of people need to learn how to say no. So that was me sneaking in a lesson there. Just learning how to take on exactly what you can take on and know what you can't do. But I'm telling you, if Faye says she's going to do it, trust me, she's going to do it. And if she says no, she has a reason. But that's enough of me talking about you. Go ahead, Faye, and tell us more about you.
Hello, everyone. Of course, my name is Faye, and I enjoyed the collaboration that Erica and I met on. That was quite an experience for us both. We learned a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Erica was overworked as usual. Now, she's the one who will take on a lot, and she just kept taking on because she has that giving spirit. So she always felt that she had to help everybody. Now, the books that I write have mainly been inspirational books, but I also, my business is Medicare, so I also write business books. But tonight I'm going to talk about the book that Erica just showed you, The Joys of Living Great. I'm going to put it on my camera as well. And this is the series. And the idea for the series came to me when I was thinking of Chicken Soup for the Soul and how that series started. You know, when he first started that, it was not meant to be thousands of books and thousands of authors writing different ideas about Chicken Soup for the Soul. It was just supposed to be an interview with important people of the world. And as that evolved, then it became all these books about with chicken soup as being the basis. And we all know the story behind chicken soup is that it is what will heal you when you're sick and when you were a child and you had a cold. The first thing your mother or your grandmother did was either gave you a can of chicken noodle soup or made you some homemade chicken soup, because that was supposed to really, really help you. So the book, The Joys of Living Great, is a series. And each of the series is a collaboration. The first one was The Joys of Living Great, and that was 20 different authors who actually gave their stories about what God has done for them and how great it is to be living this life of joy. And that kind of came about because of the first collaboration where Eric and I met. That particular book was, the audience was for people who had may have been suicidal or they were depressed, and they needed to find something that could help them. But the flip side of that is there were people who had already found their joy. So the first book, The Joys of Living Great, was, of course, so that we could let people know that, yes, I have been depressed, I have been suicidal, I have been down, but there is a way that I can feel better about myself. And now I'm at that point. Then the second book in the series, The Joys of Living Great, Affirmations, was now that I have found this joy and I can live this joy, then these are the affirmations that I do daily. These are the affirmations that bring me through each day. The third book, The Joys of Living Great, is a local book. It's written actually by the people in the community where I grew up, and it actually gives the history of things that we knew when we were growing up. And that one was really written just so that our children and our grandchildren would know something about what was going on when we were growing up and how different it was when we were in school and the school for them today. We have just released a new book, which is the one for Christmas, and it's Women of Faith. Faith is trusting God. This particular book is one that will certainly inspire everyone, and you can certainly give it as a gift because, as you can see on the screen, it's only 99 cents on pre-order, and that is until December 23rd. In this book, there are about 14 authors, and each one tells a different story of their faith. So there are stories of people who will tell you when the pandemic came, a day later they were told they had no job.
Wow.
They had no idea what they were going to do. But to the point that they wrote this story for this book, they have not lost not one thing in their lives. So God has sustained them because of their faith. You'll hear a story of someone who had no car, $4 in the bank, no credit, saw a piece of land, and her vision was, this is where my home is going to be. And she now owns 4 houses.
Wow.
She rents 3. I mean, this is where she came from based on faith, her faith in God. So Women of Faith are true stories. They're short stories. The book is an easy read, but it is truly, truly inspirational. If you or anyone you know wants to grab that book as a gift and have someone read it so that it can inspire them and motivate them to know that all they need to do is just trust God. He can take care of it all.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. Jeffrey, do you have any questions?
Not a question, just a comment. It's that belief in yourself that you have to have. Is exactly what she's referring to, and that's something that we're lacking. And I think it's very important that we see other people who are doing well when they had their trials and tribulations. Because then you can say, wow, if they can do it, I can do it too. Well, she has 3 houses, 4 houses, and she's renting out 3. If she can do it, I can do it. So we need to see more of that. And unfortunately, the media doesn't show that. They love to show the negative. They love to show the downtrodden. They rarely show the success story. But it's also important when we show the success story to show the backstory. So a lot of us can relate to that backstory. And then if we can say, wow, if they can do that, then I can do it too. So I think that's very important in this story, of what she's referring to and what Gwala was saying too. We've all had our trials and tribulations, and a lot of us may think, wow, I can't do anything right, or I can't succeed. Well, wait a minute. If you look and you can see someone who looked just like you going through something you went through and not worse, and then if they can overcome, then you can do it too. So we need to see that because it can be very inspiring to all of us to push us to go that little extra harder and a little further in life.
Thank you, Jeffrey. That's really the thought behind starting the Joys of Living Great series, because it was to show that even though some of us have some very, very deep, dark, dark places where we've been, but we've come out of that, and there's no sense in laying and wallowing in it forever. You're beyond it, move on, and if I can do it, you can do it too. And because these collaborations are with different women, each woman has a different story. They have a different way of accomplishing what they've accomplished. And sooner or later, somebody's going to read that book, and there's going to be only one person in there that their story looks exactly like their story, and they're going to be motivated and inspired to actually move on, leave all that behind, stop listening to the hype, and go on with your life. You just can't carry those burdens with you. The heaviest burden you can carry is that baggage from behind.
You know, in that first collaboration, one of the affirmations that I wrote was called the living water. And that's something that I believe that we all have inside of us. You know, when you think about Christ or, you know, religion, you think the Christ consciousness, that's what he was trying to teach us, that you can heal other people. You might not be able to go and surgically repair their eyes, but if you give them a good word, you can remove the scales from their eyes. If you give them a good word, you can get a person who didn't want to get out of bed, they couldn't walk, and now they can walk. And that's that living water. It's the words that we give people that gives them that living water, that tells them, get up and walk. Go try again. Go knock on this door. Go, you know, buy this house. Go do whatever it is that you have to do. I can give you that living water. And that's what's so important about these kinds of books. And just, even if you didn't put it in a book, if you can just get it out of your mouth, just to go heal other people with your words. Our words are so important. You can destroy somebody, or you can lift them up. You can knock them down, or you can help them fly with these words. Another thing about it too, even just with your own example of who you are, when did you write your first book? How old were you writing your first book? Was it
Actually, my first book was one that I wrote. It was not a collaboration, and it's called Decisions of Life, from the book of Esther.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I wrote that book was because God told me to write it, but then I tried not to write it. My sister is a minister, and I said to her, "You should write this book because you know the Bible so much better than I do." And that was the first actually book that I had tried to write, anything that was spiritual or inspirational, and I didn't know where to start. I knew Esther, and I knew what happened, but I didn't know that much about it. So I gave the task to my sister, and after 3 months, I went to her, and she had not written not one note. So then God said to me, I didn't tell her to write it, I told you. So I started to take my time, and I was still working full time, but I got up an hour earlier, and every morning I would write on that book for an hour, and I would go to the library because at the time I wanted to do deep, deep research about Esther. And I just did all this research and finally wrote it, and then thought, what am I going to do with it? I don't know what to do with it now. Then one night I was just sitting, and somehow on my computer up came Amazon. I said, oh, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do with it. Put it on Amazon. So there, it just all started to fall in place, and it was really, really a true inspiration and written for young adult girls, because the message I wanted them to have was, here's a woman who is living in a foreign land. She cannot expose her identity or her ethnicity. However, she has the courage to go in to the king and save her entire country. And remember, she didn't have parents. So when people say, oh, my mother was a drug addict and my dad was abusive and all of this, and I grew up in this kind of family. This young lady had no parents. So that book was written as an inspiration for young teens and young adult women.
Now, when you say young, she was very young. And people need to remember,
Yes,
she was very young.
she was. Because back then, 14, you're ready to get married or you're ready to be given to somebody. Absolutely.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the comparison to the bowl of soup to, how all our mothers, have done the chicken soup. I really enjoyed that. And I also appreciate, how you're collaborating with all these different women, with different stories, as you mentioned. That's a very wise idea because so many women are going through so many different things. And we need to hear our Black women's stories because they're the most powerful stories. They're the survival stories. And I always tell people, when I think back at some of the great people of our time, of great renown now, I mentioned earlier, somebody like a Tupac or, you hear these stories of these people that they went through so much. And we know our sisters are going through so much and we need to hear their side. So thank you so much for bringing those voices out. I really greatly appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you all for having me.
Oh, yes. We knew you were going to knock the socks off of this, Faye. Come on.
No.
No, it's great, too, because I think the biggest lesson that I'm learning about life in general is your story is not the same. The track that you got is a different track. So I can't judge my life by anybody else's life. I can't judge my story by anybody else's story. And I love it too when I see people, my age and older setting goals where, we can't just lay down and wait for the end. We have to challenge ourselves and set new goals and not be afraid to venture on out into things that we've not done before. And you're just a great example of that.
Thank you.
Keep on going. We got, a small setback, but we just keep going, where some people would quit.